Hello and welcome to you.dev. My name is Paul. I've been making computers do things for over 30 years. I've been doing so professionally for over 15 years. I've been doing screencasts online for over 2 days. Let's learn how the internet works from scratch. Probably not in this one video, but I promise if you stick with me, we'll figure it out eventually. There is some previous knowledge required here. Mainly, you should know what a computer is, a very low first bar, but a bar nonetheless. Know what a display, a keyboard, mouse, storage, memory, processor. Know those things. You should be comfortable using a desktop environment, whether it be Microsoft Windows or Mac OS X, or a Unix-like alternative, too many to name here. You should know what HTML is and what it looks like. You should know that it stands for Hypertext Markup Language. You should know what markup generally looks like. Same with CSS. You should know it stands for Cascading Style Sheets. You should know generally what a CSS rule looks like. There's a selector that points at some HTML elements and some rules or properties that describe what the element should look like. You should also know how to download and use a plain text editor. We had downloaded Sublime Text in our first video in this very introductory series, but you may use whatever plain text editor you like. So we've learned HTML, we've learned CSS. There is a third language the browser uses, that is JavaScript, and this is the real programming language so far. With HTML, this has been a markup language. And cascading style sheets are, again, just kind of descriptions of what the elements should look like. No real programming yet. JavaScript is a programming language, but it's definitely not Java. Java was developed by Sun Microsystems back in the early 90s and was meant to be run on every kind of computer. It's one language to run on every computer, multi-platform. It's a very traditional language, very strict in comparison to JavaScript. JavaScript is very fast and loose, sometimes too fast and too loose. But JavaScript runs mainly in the browser. It has recently escaped the browser onto the server, much to the chagrin of the Java people. Pardon me, I'm going to continue before I put my foot in my mouth. But yes, JavaScript fast and loose in the browser, Java traditional, strict, running on systems, desktops. Jargon time. A variable. A variable is a name assigned to a segment or a piece of computer memory. Think of it like a locker, a computer memory. There's a bunch of unlabeled lockers, and when you're programming, you need to keep track of information. I need a place to put stuff. So you call out a name, in your programming language of choice. You declare a variable by name. Let's say we're making a video game or whatever. And there's a player character. We need a player health. That would be a variable. A place of memory, we could put a number. I need to put 100 in a place and call it player health. So we'll be working with variables very shortly. A statement. A statement is a command or instruction to be followed by the computer or browser in the case of JavaScript here. So a statement could be something that affects a variable. Let's say, an event fires off. The player gets hurt in this video game or whatever. We could say something like player health, subtract 10, the player took damage, as it were. A statement can affect a variable. A function. A function is a reusable set of instructions or statements. So let's say there's 2 or 3 or 4 statements that are meant to go one after the other. They're very much related to each other. And instead of having to write, we want to use them over and over again. And instead of having to write them all over and over again, the same 3 or 4 instructions, we can write them in one place and reuse them over and over again by calling a single name or a single function. So yeah, let's put some meaning to these words. It's all very abstract at this moment. Let's do a demo. All right, here we are on our desktop again. We have our first HTML. Let's double click it and ooh, it's, perhaps not the prettiest thing in the world, but it's ours. And, we were just doing some introductory HTML. We wanted to know that, HTML could affect a browser, and we have proven that to ourselves. We have also proven to ourselves that CSS can target parts of an HTML document and make them look different. So yeah, we've practiced nesting. Let's open up Sublime here. Sublime text. Open our first HTML and let's start scrolling down. Yeah, we had that head, our title, inline style document, a bunch of CSS rules, and here's the body of the page. So yeah, we've got that form down near the bottom of the page with that text element, the drop down, option 1 and 2, there they are. Very good. Okay, so we can add some JavaScript to this page now. But where should we add it? You know, you can almost put JavaScript anywhere, but you know, there's something about the way a browser loads an HTML document. It does so line by line, very much in order. So much so that until the browser has hit that line, it doesn't even know what's at the bottom of the document. So as the browser's reading through here, it's going, okay, there's some style rules, there's a tab, you know, maybe it read title and set the tab. It's just stepping line by line. So if we're stepping line by line, and let's say I'm going to go underneath style here and write a new script element here. Ooh, I'm going to do less than slash that filled in the rest of the element there and hit return. If we're scrolling line by line, let's say here, or rather the browser is reading line by line. It read through the style rules and the browser hits this line. It goes, okay, the style rules are done. Script. And then we get into our script. And let's say our script wants to change part of the page down here. Well, because the browser is reading it in order and it doesn't know the future, this script right here technically doesn't know that the body exists. So oftentimes you'll see web developers, I'm going to cut this text, web developers put a lot of scripts down near the very bottom, almost outside the body, like right there, after all of the displaying elements of the page, because they want this script to know about all of the elements. So if we have, like down here near the body, I'm going to zoom in here. Here's the bottom of the HTML document. Here's the end of the body. We want our script to be right there before the end of the body. That way the script can, quote unquote, know about the rest of the page. So, yeah, let's start playing around with JavaScript. I'm going to zoom in here and let's type the, well, it's arguably like the most taught first function of JavaScript and the most obnoxious. I'm going to type the word alert out, which is a function. And in the world of general purpose programming, we call a function with parentheses. I'm going to open and close parentheses. And now we are calling the function, calling the alert function. With these parentheses, if you go inside, the function can take inputs or arguments into them and then respond to those inputs. So we could type in like a string or a sentence inside here, and alert can use that string. So let's say hello from JavaScript, exclamation mark. Let's save that. Going to come back into the browser and hit Command R. Let's reload. Hello from JavaScript. All right. Oh, the page did not render. Keep that in mind. Let's click OK, and then the page does render. Okay, so the alert was very in your face and very blocking, like it stopped everything and said, no, look at me. It's a very obtrusive first function to learn. Let's replace alert with a more pleasant function. I'm going to write out the word console. C-O-N-S-O-L-E. And that console is a JavaScript object that has many functions built into it, and we can access those many functions with a period using like dot notation, it's called, or dot syntax. One of those functions inside, quote unquote, inside of console is the log function. So I'm asking the JavaScript object, this built-in object in JavaScript, the console, I'm asking it with this little dot, hey, you have a log function. I want to call that log function. So that's what a console log looks like. Let's zoom out. I'm going to save, go back to the browser and hit Command R, and we don't see anything. It's kind of invisible. It's almost like completely secret. We didn't hear it. Like if we were a normal user on this web page, we wouldn't see that. But if we're a developer, we can go to the View menu. We're in a Chromium browser right now, a Chrome-style browser. I'll show you how this looks in other browsers as well. But if you're in a Chrome browser, you go View menu, Developer. Out here in Developer, there is a JavaScript console. Command Option J. You may see me do that in the future. To invoke this JavaScript console, I open that up, and there's hello from JavaScript. Our first HTML called that on line 70. How about that? So that's kind of a little stealthy way for developers or programmers to leave notes for themselves of like, hey, how we doing? You can kind of leave a secret or perhaps not so secret message for yourself right there. Let's take a tour around other browsers to see what that looks like really fast. Going to go into a Firefox. If you were like in a Firefox browser, that will be under, oh, let's see, okay, got it. Firefox browsers, that'll be under Tools, Web Developer, under the Web Console. And then you will see hello from JavaScript there. Similarly, in Firefox Developer, if you go there, it's a Firefox-like browser from Mozilla, so it's Tools, Web Developer, Web Console. And there it is, hello from JavaScript. If you're in Microsoft Edge for whatever reason, I don't know why you would be doing that. I'm sorry for you. Microsoft Edge, I believe that's Tools, Developer, JavaScript Console. This is all starting to look very familiar. If we were in Safari, you may have to enable developer mode. Safari's kind of funny. I recommend downloading an additional browser, maybe Firefox or Brave or anything. But Safari is a little more involved. Let me go back to my presentation. My presentation's in Safari. There's stuff I do like about Safari. Its full screen is very full screen. Safari, you'd have to go under Preferences, Safari Preferences, Advanced, go down to the bottom, click the Show Develop menu in the menu bar. It's a bit involved. Let's open up the file. And in Safari, that would be under Develop menu, Show JavaScript Console. And there we are, hello from JavaScript. All right, I had to show you. Let's go back to the presentation. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Anyway, yeah, let's close all those other dang browsers and get back to this JavaScript console here. How are we doing? All right, 13 minutes, not so bad. Let's continue. So now we can leave little notes for ourselves while we're developing JavaScript. And they give us a handy-dandy little console here. We've got this little flashing text. Let's access something just to see what we can see here. I'm going to type the word document. Whoa, and this whole area lights up. That appears to be the entire document. I'm going to hit enter. Document. Hashtag or like ID document. When it has a little arrow, you can fold that down. Whoa, there's the HTML document, the body. Ha! JavaScript has access to the entire HTML document. You can even see the little script down there. Hello from JavaScript. Ha! So yeah, let's keep that in mind as we proceed and explore JavaScript. Let's yeah, let's what do I want to do with you guys here? Let's add some attributes to these p tags up here, or like a p tag. I'm going to give it a class and just say, Oh, I've caught myself off guard. Let's do like a dogs, I don't know, dog class, just to like anything. It could be anything. I'm going to make a bunch of paragraphs of class dog. All right, class dog, class dog. Okay, I'm just kind of copy pasting all this stuff. You should be comfortable with copy pasting. I sincerely hope so. So, let's go back to the browser, reload. All right, now we have these 3 paragraphs. So, a bunch of elements can share a class, but if we want to refer to a single element by name, we can also give it an ID attribute. where we can call out in this case, we have all these dog classes. These paragraphs are all dogs, evidently. Um, but we can call them out by name, and granted, I know, technically there's can be more than one dog named Fido, but I'm trying to prove a point here. Let's say, they're all dogs, but we know we could have Fido and Spot and ID Rover. These would be used to refer to specific elements on the page. You could grab, all the dogs, say like, hey, give me class dog, and I'll prove a point with the CSS right now. Let's go up here and say class dog. Class dogs are all about having sort of a light gray color. Pardon my speed coding there. I'll describe what I'm doing later. But yeah, you could select all dogs or a specific dog. Let's say, Fido specifically has a color of, red. And then, oh, Fido turns red. So, yes, we can have classes that are applied to multiple elements, and IDs are meant to only target one element by name. So, with that ridiculous aside, let's go reload our page and go back to our JavaScript console inside the web browser. And I'm going to now, with the knowledge of those IDs, type out a new function here, a built-in JavaScript function. I'm going to type the word document, hit dot because document has a bunch of abilities. I want to access those abilities with the dot syntax there. And one of those abilities is get lowercase. We're going to do what is called camel case here. You can write whole sentences with capital letters here. Get capital E element by ID. You can see it suggesting it, thankfully, suggesting it as we're typing along. But look, we have like almost a sentence here. And they start with lowercase, but then they get like uppercase first letters there. Get element by ID. That is a function, so we need to call it with those parentheses. And then that function will take a string. We can put some double quotes in there. And now we have the document. We're asking it to get an element by ID. Hey, we had some dog names out there. Let's see if we can select maybe Fido by name. I'm going to hit enter. Oh, hey, look, it's a paragraph. Class dog ID Fido. So we can use the built-in document object in JavaScript to go get pieces of the web page or elements in the web page by ID or like by name. I can come down to the JavaScript console here, hit the up arrow to grab that last command up there, up arrow. And let's, do like a spot, hit enter. Oh, hey, there's the spot class right there. So there's a spot and there's Fido. We can say document get element by ID. All right, well, once we have an element by ID, I'm going to hit that up arrow again. We can ask that element to do something too. We're going to do something called like method chaining, which sounds kind of spooky, but it's when you ask an object to do something, get an element, and then an element comes out the other side, and then you can ask that element to do something. So check this out. This is going to get out of hand here, man. Whoa. All right, I'm going to hit dot again, and we have access to other abilities. I'm going to start typing like, let's say, inner text with a capital T. I'm going to hit enter. Whoa. There's the inner text of the spot element. Huh. Now let's see if we can really do something. Let's see if we can affect change here. I'm going to hit the up arrow to grab that previous command. And after the inner text, I'm going to hit space, although that doesn't really matter. I just want to give it some room so we can look at what's about to happen. And I'm going to hit equals once, which in this case is considered an assignment operator in this case. Not necessarily like equals, like we're asking if some number is equal to another thing, but rather it's almost like a command, like inner text, you will now be equal to something else. Enter. I'll zoom out. Whoa, there's something else now. So with that assignment operator, we were able to demand that the inner text be equal to something else. So document, let's review that. We asked the document, this is a built-in JavaScript object. We asked that built-in object to get an element by ID. We did so with that dot syntax. That get element by ID was a function, so we had to call it with parentheses there. That function took a string, so we could go grab an element by name or by ID. And then a element got spit out of this function, and then we could ask that element that got spit out. Wow, this is getting a little convoluted. Hang in there, folks, you're doing great. We can ask that element that got spit out about its inner text, and we asked it, hey, like, what's your inner text? We just asked it up here. Then it spat it out, and then we made a demand, like this is a statement. We're saying, hey, inner text, you are now equal to something else, and it did it. It said it. So I'm going to come down on the console one more time just to prove that point, hit an up arrow. And I think we named one of our other dogs Rover, if I was not mistaken. And this is something else too. Hit enter. Yep. Cool. Now let's see if we can write our own function. This is cool. We can go and grab, something by name or by ID rather. Let's chain some behavior together. Maybe we can even fire off an event. How much time we got here? 21 minutes. All right, maybe we can do this in 4 minutes. Hang in there, folks. We got this. All right. I am going to go back up into our body of the HTML document, and I'm going to add a button somewhere. Oh my gosh, this page is so ugly. I don't even know why I'm choosing to put a button somewhere. Any place is good as another when we have a page like this. Let's come back in here. I'm going to open a button tag, and let's close the button tag. Thank you very much, Sublime. Inside the button, I'm going to say, click me. And that button is going to have an ID attribute too. I'm just going to call it, like change. Why not? I don't know. Hell, any ID is as good as another, just as long as it doesn't collide with any other ID. So I'm going to save that and come back to the browser and reload. We have this click me button now. Oh, hey, that content got changed back. Very good. Click me and nothing happens, right? We have no behavior assigned to this button. But yeah, we could assign some behavior. Let's go down into our script here where we said hello from JavaScript. And let's start adding some behavior to this page. How on earth do we do that? Well, let's declare a new variable using the var keyword. This prepares the JavaScript interpreter or whatever. There's a JavaScript engine running inside the browser, silently in the background. We can ask that JavaScript engine, hey, like reserve some memory for me. I'm about to work on something. That like change button or whatever. In this variable, you could call it whatever, like the just button or click button or click me button. I'm going to call it that change button. And this variable, right now it's empty, but we could also set it equal to something and say, hey, change button, you are now equal to, what should we have it be equal to? We have access to that document, right? Cool. In that document, we can get elements by ID, and that's a function. And that function takes a string. Oh yeah, we can go grab that button by ID. I think we had a change ID on that button. So as long as those two match up, right here and right here, you're going to be good. You could call those whatever you want. It really doesn't matter. So now, we document get element by ID. That changed. So now we have the change button. And now I'm going to add some semicolons just to make myself feel happy. This is kind of an old C language tradition. You don't actually need to add these in JavaScript, but I like to put them at the end of statements to really make it clear that, yes, this is the end of the statement. JavaScript will sometimes automatically insert them, and I'd like to have them there. Pardon that aside, let's continue. Now that we have a variable called change button, and it has received that button up there, we can refer to change button inside JavaScript and ask it to do some stuff. We can say, hey, button, I want to, oh boy, here we are, another crazy method name or another crazy function name. I want to add an event listener to that button. So this change button we have selected now. I say, hey, change button, add an event listener. That's a function. This function takes 2 arguments, right? You get element by ID, took 1 argument. If it was going to take a second argument, we'd put a comma, and then we'd have a second argument or input. I'm going to remove that. Add event listener takes 2 arguments. One is the event, and like we're going to be listening for clicks, All right, so I'm going to put a click in a string. And then it takes a second argument after this comma here, and it's going to be, some function. We want a function that fires off. Like, what do we want to do? We want to like change the page, or yeah, heck, I don't know. Change the page. This function doesn't exist yet, but we're about to write it. So the change button, we're going to ask it to add an event listener. We want it to like listen for behavior that we're going to do. And that behavior is a click. And when the click happens, we want to change the page. But there is no change the page function. Let's save it and run it right now just to see what happens. Oh, thank you, Sublime. Save, and let's go reload. Boom. It says uncaught reference error. Change the page is not defined. Oh yeah, we're trying to fire off this function here, this change of page function, but it doesn't exist. Let's make it exist. I'm going to come down here. We're still inside script, and I'm going to type the word function and then space. So very much like when we say var and we say, hey, JavaScript engine, get ready. I want a variable called change button. We can say function, and JavaScript will say, okay, tell me the name of the function you want to make. And it's that change the page function, change the page. And when we declare a function, we need to appear to call it. We're going to put these parentheses out in front of it, but then after those parentheses, add some curly braces. This is a blank function declaration. Let's look at the parts really quick before we go inside. We have the word function, which tells JavaScript engine, hey, I want a new function to exist, in our world. That function's name is change the page. We could have some inputs. Oh, and in fact, I think because the click is coming in, there could be like, a click comes into this change the page function, or like, there's some incoming event. This is like an event that's coming in from the event listener when we click the button. And then some stuff happens inside this function. Inside these curly braces, there's going to be some statements. Yeah, what kind of statements? Well, we did that like really obnoxious alert thing before. There is another kind of obnoxious alert. It's a prompt, but yeah, we can like ask the user something in a really obnoxious way. Let's do that. Oh man, this is getting crazy. I'm going to try to keep it under a half an hour. These are getting longer and longer. These are supposed to be quick intros. I'm going to start plowing ahead here, so buckle up, folks. All right. Yeah, prompt. We need a variable to hold, some response. And this doesn't have to be called response. I'm just pulling that out of thin air. And we're going to have that response receive a value from some function out here, the prompt function. We're going to call that, very much like we called alert. We're going to ask, like, what is your name? And that'll pop up a very obnoxious in-browser pop-up with a little input. And then the user is going to type in something, and that's going to get dumped into response. So then response will have whatever that person's name is, hopefully. And then we can do something silly, like let's ask the document to do something. Hey, document, go get an element by ID. You're a function. I'm going to call you. And let's go get Fido by ID. And I think Fido has some inner text, right? Let's have that inner text be set to whatever this response was that the user typed in. Oh, I hope this works. Let's see here. I'm going to save, come back to the browser, hit return, rather Command R, pardon me, and reload. We got that hello from JavaScript. That's very nice. And that says click me. It says, what is your name? And we type in Paul, and bam, we set that inner text equal to Paul. Right under 30 minutes. Oh my gosh, folks. Thank you for your patience. Just to let you know, JavaScript is a pretty wily language. It intimidates even me. Now, after years and years of learned it, I feel like I've relearned it so many times. So you may be discouraged, and JavaScript may look really funky sometimes, but hang in there. I promise we're going to learn exactly how the internet works. You're the best audience ever. Once again, Paul signing out for you.dev.